In the sprawling military communications center at Fort Henderson, Technical Sergeant Elena Vasquez sat at a workstation that looked like it belonged in a scrapyard. But what happened next would prove that sometimes the most outdated equipment holds the most advanced secrets. Before we dive into this incredible story, if you're enjoying these tales of hidden heroes and unexpected expertise, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us bring you more amazing stories like this one. And in the comments below, let us know which city around the world you're watching from today. We love hearing from our global audience. Now, back to Elena and her mysterious radio equipment. While her colleagues operated sleek satellite systems worth millions of dollars, she worked with what appeared to be radio parts salvaged from the 1980s, homemade circuit boards, vintage vacuum tubes, and frequency modulators that seemed ancient compared to the digital displays surrounding her. "Look at Vasquez over there," Staff Sergeant Miller whispered to his team, pointing at her collection of equipment. "Command really needs to update her gear. That stuff looks like my grandfather's ham radio setup." She simply continued fine-tuning her equipment, adjusting frequencies with the precision of someone who understood exactly what she was doing. Her workspace was organized chaos, old manuals, handwritten frequency charts, and custom-built amplifiers that defied military standardization. "Seriously, why doesn't she just use the standard comm equipment like everyone else?" asked Corporal Johnson, genuinely curious. "Those satellite links can reach anywhere in the world instantly," Miller shrugged. "Some people just can't adapt to modern technology. She's probably afraid of all the fancy digital stuff." Elena's fingers paused momentarily on her radio dials, but she said nothing. She had learned long ago that explaining herself only invited more questions she couldn't answer. The morning routine continued as usual, until 0347 hours, when everything changed. The base alarm system activated with its piercing wail, cutting through the normal chatter of the communications center. "All stations, this is command," came the urgent voice over the intercom. "We have reports of a major seismic event affecting our forward operating base in the Kandahar province. Initial magnitude estimates suggest significant infrastructure damage. Establish communication immediately." Staff Sergeant Miller jumped into action, his fingers flying across his digital interface. The main satellite communication array came online, displaying connection protocols and signal strength indicators. For 30 seconds, everything looked normal. Then the display went red. "Satellite link is down," he announced, frowning at his screen. "Must be atmospheric interference from the earthquake. Let me try the backup array." He switched to a secondary system, equally sophisticated and equally expensive. The result was the same: no connection. Around the communications center, other technicians were experiencing similar failures. Digital networks that had worked flawlessly for years suddenly couldn't penetrate the interference created by the massive earthquake. The modern systems that they depended on were rendered useless by the very disaster they needed to respond to. "This doesn't make sense," Corporal Johnson said, panic creeping into his voice. "We have redundant systems, backup satellites, multiple frequency bands. How can everything be down?" Commander Harrison entered the communications center, his expression grim. "Status report. Do we have contact with FOB Sentinel?" "Negative, sir," Miller responded. "All primary and secondary communication systems are experiencing total failure. The earthquake appears to have created massive interference across all our standard frequency ranges." "Unacceptable," the commander replied. "There are 200 personnel at that base, possibly injured, definitely isolated. We need communication within the hour or we're looking at a humanitarian disaster." As the team frantically tried every available system, Elena quietly continued working at her station. She had been monitoring emergency frequencies since the alarm sounded, listening to the static and interference patterns that were blocking the modern equipment. She made a series of adjustments to her homemade radio, consulting charts that she had created herself over years of research. Slowly, carefully, she began transmitting on a frequency that wasn't in any military manual. The response came faintly at first, a weak signal cutting through the electromagnetic chaos that had silenced everything else. Elena fine-tuned her equipment, boosting the signal strength while filtering out interference with techniques that predated digital processing by decades. "FOB Sentinel, this is Fort Henderson Communications. Do you copy?" The response was scratchy but clear. "Fort Henderson, this is FOB Sentinel. Thank God someone got through. We have multiple casualties and urgent medical evacuation requirements." The entire communications center fell silent as Elena's voice cut through the static. Every technician stopped what they were doing and stared at the woman whose ancient equipment had just accomplished what their million-dollar systems couldn't. Staff Sergeant Miller approached her station in disbelief. What frequency are you using? My equipment shows nothing but interference on all bands." Elena continued coordinating with the isolated base, relaying casualty reports and evacuation requirements to command. Only after establishing a stable communication link did she turn to address Miller's question.
This is a backup frequency specifically designed for disaster scenarios where modern systems fail, she explained simply. The equipment you see here isn't outdated, it's specialized. Commander Harrison had been listening to the exchange with growing confusion and respect. He approached Elena's station and studied her equipment more closely. Among the seemingly random collection of radio parts, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. A small device, barely visible among the other components, bore a familiar insignia. 3 interlocking circles with a lightning bolt, a symbol he hadn't seen in over a decade. "Sergeant Vasquez," he said quietly, his voice carrying a note of awe. "Where did you get that frequency modulator?" Elena's hand stilled on her controls. She had hoped no one would recognize the specialized equipment, but Commander Harrison was older, more experienced than the other personnel in the communications center. "It's standard issue for my assignment, sir," she replied carefully. "No, it's not," the commander said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "That's phantom frequency gear, Project Lazarus communications equipment." The name hit the communication center like a physical force. Project Lazarus was legendary in military communication circles, a classified program that had developed communication systems capable of operating in the most extreme conditions imaginable: nuclear interference, electromagnetic warfare, natural disasters that rendered conventional equipment useless. The project had been so classified that most military personnel believed it was just a rumor. Those who knew it was real thought it had been discontinued years ago due to budget constraints and the development of more advanced digital systems. Staff Sergeant Miller stared at Elena with new understanding. "You're not just a communications technician, are you?" Elena continued her work, maintaining the vital link with the isolated base while coordinating rescue operations. "I'm exactly what my assignment says I am."